scoundrel. I was trained to ride at the King's Academy and schooled in weaponry by the Palace Guard. You stand no chance. Will you run, I shall ride, and when you stop, the steel of this strap will be lodged in your brain.
Right. Kate and Leopold, and obviously a man of chivalry there. Don't you kind of wish you had a horse you could just kind of call on whenever there was something like that that was needed? Well, thank you for joining us this morning. Just wonderful to have you with us as we continue our series on Amazing Men. That, of course, is a time travel movie, if you haven't seen it. My wife and I like time travel movies. Our actual favorite is called Somewhere in Time. Maybe you've seen it with Christopher Reeve and Jane Seymour, who's fairly easy on the eyes, by the way, of course, as is Meg Ryan. But the scene is at the Grand Hotel in Mackinac Island, and I don't know, she just vibrates when she sees that movie. We've watched it a number of times, but it, for some reason, just kind of triggers the whole idea of romance. And you know, that often tends to be, that word, a mystery word to men. Exactly what is it? What is romance? Well, Rachel Hawk, a writer, said, it's a powerful force that makes you feel connected to someone in a deeper way. It's the gestures, both big and small, that make you feel especially wooed and especially cherished by your partner. Romance is what takes your relationship past friendship. Romance is not about the sexual encounters, but about awakening the heart. Then I found an interesting article called What is Romance and What Does It Really Mean? And I thought this was interesting, that the first thing that it says, that what many women traditionally find romantic still holds true today. And the first thing listed was acts of chivalry. The whole notion that bad boys are more attractive to women is a myth. Most women are looking for a guy who charms her with his courtesy, generosity, and attentiveness. Chivalrous acts include opening doors, giving her your jacket when it's cold, picking her up for the date that you planned out, rather than simply texting to ask her out on a date, paying the bill, and walking her to the door. Why is chivalry still the it thing? Because it lets a woman know that she is special to you. She's not just any other girl. She is the one for you. Also on that list were acts of kindness, when your special someone offers to tackle one of your to-do lists. Yeah, to a woman that means something. It triggers a romantic spark. Acts of affection. She wants to know that you're thinking of her, that you care for her, and want to be around her. Romance happens between the ears for many women, meaning it's the deep emotional connection you build with her that's the highest form of romance. To a woman, she wants to know that you're thinking of her, care for her, and want to be around her. Nicholas Sparks, who is responsible for The Notebook, maybe you've seen that movie as well, another romance film, says, as far as this couple, they didn't agree on much. In fact, they didn't agree on anything. They fought all the time, challenged each other every day, but despite their differences, they had one important thing in common. They were crazy about each other. Finally, some women choose to follow men, some women choose to follow their dreams. If you're wondering which way to go, remember that your career will never wake you up and tell you that it doesn't love you anymore. Best pay attention to those chivalrous acts. That, by the way, from Lady Gaga, the great philosopher. All right, now to explain how to be amazing men, magnetic men, here's John Bell.
Well, I think Mark just covered the whole lesson, so you guys can go right into your groups. That was really excellent, Mark. I once asked Linda, I said, so what attracted you to me? Was it my looks? Was it my brains? My athleticism? You know, my outgoing ways? What was it? She goes, I knew if I married you, I'd always have fun. Oh, and you have a cute butt. And I literally, when she told me that the reason she married me had nothing to do with any of the things that I might have thought, I realized at that moment what is sexy to her is different than what's sexy to me. And Mark kind of covered a lot of those things. So, here's something I want you to do as you leave today, or, sometime this week. Doesn't have to be even today. I want you to say to your wife, why did you marry me? What was there? What is that thing that you saw in me that set me apart from other men? And that'll give you a key into the contours of her soul. Because I guarantee you, I've said this for years, the way that we look at life and the way that our wives look at life is completely different. If Lynn and I go to a party and then you interview both of us afterwards, you'll think we were at a different party. Because what she sees and what I see are completely. So I've kind of deleted from my vocabulary, I'm just telling the truth. Because I realized I'm not telling the truth. I'm telling my perspective on the truth. And I need her perspective, to fully understand everything that's going on. Let's start with a definition this morning. And this is kind of, when I give you these, it kind of incorporates everything that we're going to say. A magnetic lover. Do you consider yourself magnetic, by the way? Can I tell you something? At some point in your life, you were. At some point, she was attracted to you, right? Here's part of the problem. The part of the problem is you think of magnetism in comparison to other men. Like Kate and Leopold. Like, you don't want to be compared to Leopold, right? But to your wife, you are magnetic, and you need to build on that. Because you are. Because I have news for you. When she first met you, she saw the best in you. She saw the potential in you, right? And even if you have fallen short of that, even at this point, you can still regain that. You can rebuild that. Because what I've seen about women is they are unbelievably forgiving and unbelievably responsive. So a magnetic lover, that's what we're talking about here. Think of yourself in this dimension of a man. This is that fifth dimension. We're kind of building. We started off with friendship and relationship, and then we started off with student, and that led us to, being a warrior and being gritty, and then learning to be a gentle protector. And now we get to magnetic. And of all the things that we're going to talk about, this is the one that incorporates all the rest. A magnetic lover is a man who loves and leads his wife. And I always tell guys, if you have to tell your wife that you're the leader, you're screwed. Or for Christian men, I tell them, if you have to use a Bible verse to tell them your role and their role, it's completely useless. Who loves and leads his wife, he continually seeks to understand her. That is the key. What Mark said, sexy is between the ears. And more than anything else, that's what they're looking for. They want to be understood. And they believe that of all the people on the planet, you were the one that could help them understand, sort things out. And helps her sort things out. He practices the 3 kinds of love, which we'll cover, appropriately with her. He makes her safe and secure. Another good question, do you feel safe with me? His magnetism grows so that he and his wife become one in body, soul, and spirit. You know, that what should be happening to you is you should be finishing each other's sentences. Or you say something and she says, I was thinking exactly the same thing. Well, don't finish them. Just let her finish and say, I can't tell you how many times that happens. What happens is you start, because you're sharing that perspective and the other person now sees a much bigger part of the world. And then here's what's really important. This is what marriage is all about. This is why marriage is so holy. Because of all the things that have ever been created, all the institutions that have ever been instituted, marriage is the one that reflects 2 things that are really important. One, marriage reflects the Trinity, the triunity of God. And secondly, it reflects the love of Christ. And the woman has a part in that, and the man has a part in that. Here's the key, and it comes from Peter. He says, you husbands, in the same way, live with your wives in an understanding way. That's the key. Like you're going to spend a lifetime probing the depths to understand her. And by the way, you are going to help her understand herself. And she's going to do the same for you, by the way. Right? And she's pretty in tune with that. She knows that. You may not know that. And Mark opened, I thought it was so great, chivalry. Chivalry comes from the medieval ages, from 1170 to 1220. And there was actually a code of chivalry. And they created it because the knights were kind of out of control. Instead of being useful, they were destructive. And so to create, more order and peace and safety basically in Europe, throughout Europe, among the knights, they created a code of chivalry. And it was a combination of qualities expected of an ideal knight. And here were the things that were emphasized: courage, honor, courtesy, justice, and listen to this, because we've talked about this a lot, and a readiness to help the weak. What did we say an amazing man is? Always tender towards weakness. So you can't change, you can't remove that part of your brain that automatically sees weakness. You might ask yourself, why in the world did God weave into our brains the ability to see weakness? Well, here's why. Because when you see that weakness, you're supposed to be tender towards it. Okay? So, to be magnetic, today this is going to be a kind of a 2-part session, because I realized in going through it this week that because this covers all of the qualities, all of the other 5 dynamics of being an amazing man. So we're going to break this into 2 parts, okay? First, to be magnetic, all of the other dynamics of an amazing man are sharply focused on your wife. And here's what I love about that. I love the fact that it's every day 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Like, of all the people that need to know that you are amazing, it's your wife. She's the one where this is where the real test comes, because there's a lot of tension, and every day something's going to come up. And so this is kind of the laboratory for being amazing. Like I'm working with a company on some of these qualities, especially about leadership. They only have to practice these kind of brain skills. They only have to practice them, now they can do it on Zoom. But they used to only have to practice it for a certain part of the day. And then, with your wife, there is no, right? And the times that she needs you to be amazing are the times when you may not feel like you're amazing. And that's when you go to the gym. That's when you get on the treadmill. That's when you have to push up the weights. So all these things come together, and think of it like this. You should be thankful for your wife because she can help you be an amazing man as you practice these things. And it's not just information. I've been to all kinds of seminars. I've got all kinds of notebooks sitting on my shelf. And it was really good for the 3 days that I was there. But remember this. You have to take this. And essentially what you're doing is you are rewiring your brain. I mean, the wonderful thing about neuroscience is they've discovered neuroplasticity, which just means that your brain can grow no matter what age you are. I read the story about a man. He's a cranky old man. He's like in his early 60s. And someone confronted him about his crankiness. And he said, well, I've always been a cranky old man. And the guy talking to him said, are you a Christian? Do you know Jesus? He said, yeah. He said, then you're not a cranky old man. That's not your identity. That's a false identity that you've latched onto. And the man at that moment, all of a sudden, he went from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. And he realized, wow, I don't have to be a cranky old man. One of the things I'm going to ask you to do as we get to the end is I'm going to have you write up your identity. And I'm going to give you something to work with on that because that's so important. So first and foremost, in sharply focusing, you must first and foremost be sticky with her. You must be sticky with her. Now, when you started off, you meant to be sticky, right? I mean, that's what it was all about. When you said those words, when you looked into her eyes and said, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health. And notice when you said that, there were no exceptions, no buts. So you've got to be sticky with her. And here's what we said. It is that extreme loyalty. It's a word that's used in the Old Testament, chesed. And another word, debach. And one has to do with joining yourself like glue to the other person. For this cause, a man shall leave his father and mother and be stuck. In a good sense. And essentially, what is adhesion? What is cohesion? It's two things pressed together in such a way that you can't pull them apart. In fact, if you pull them apart, you will do damage to both. Have you ever like used glue on something and you thought you had it right? And then after you got it stuck, you realized it wasn't right? You're like, That's what stickiness is. It's cleaving to one another. It's the same thing as the Proverbs passage. There is a friend that sticks closer than a brother. And then chesed means what I initially stuck myself to, I'm going to stay with. It's that word that sometimes it's mistranslated as loving kindness, but it's used 250 times. And it speaks of God's chesed for us. So here's some things. I just want to throw these out for you. We're going to kind of rapid fire just some things. And if you don't get all these, don't worry. I'll make sure you get a copy. How's that? Okay? But I want you to think about these. First and foremost, and I want you guys to start practicing this. And I want you to start practicing it with each other. Do you know you can trick your brain? Did you know that? You can actually trick your brain into being happy. Or actually, not happy. You can trick your brain into being joyful. Stand in front of a mirror and just smile at yourself. You have 43 muscles on your face. Did you know that? You probably use about 6. You have 43 muscles. Why would God put 43 muscles on our face? Here's why. Because our face, what do they say about our eyes? Our eyes are the window to our. But what has happened is you build up neural pathways over the years to frown, or basically to wear a mask. That's what I see with most guys. So here's the first thing. So I want you to practice this. This is for practice this week. Every time you look at your wife, if she walks into the room or she turns to you on the couch or you're sitting with her, make sure your eyes light up. Do your eyes light up when you see her? Her eyes are picking it up, and a chemical reaction actually takes place in her brain. That's what she's looking for. Mark's talking about all those little things. That's a big deal. That's a big deal because that's the first way people get approval. And by the way, don't do that for more than like 10 seconds. Don't, because it'll be overwhelming to her. Like too much joy, it's like it overwhelms people. So rest. Light up, rest. Light up, rest. There's a wonderful rhythm of life. I used to play this game with my kids called Tickle Tickle. And I learned after a while that they would actually turn away when they couldn't take it anymore. So bring her joy and then let her rest. Practice that. Practice that this week. Secondly, be very aware of your voice tone. Be very aware of your voice tone. If you say to your wife, "I'm not mad," what does she hear? He's really pissed off. And I'm not safe right now. So I've just learned, and I can't tell you how long it took me to learn that, because I'm boisterous anyhow. Like in my family, everyone's loud. So pay attention to your tone. Your face and your tone communicate more to your wife than anything else. Here's something to remember. Saving the day comes in small packages. Saving the day comes in small packages. Don't worry if you don't get all this down. Like I said, I'll make sure you get the notes. I'll bring a whole set of notes for you next week. Saving the day comes in, take care of little things. Now, we all celebrate Valentine's, right? And then, that's over. I want you to celebrate small Valentines every day. And here's the suggestion. I want you to send her a text of appreciation, gratefulness, love. I want you to send it. And I'm not saying every day. If you could do it every day, that'd be great. I mean, only 2 lines. Just a little thing. I mean, the great thing now is you don't have to leave a note on the pillow. You can send a text. And I call this, just the Valentine text. And just do it as often as you can. If you have to, put it on your phone to remind yourself. Here's a small thing to do. My wife loves, scratch her back. Scratch her back. Have you ever met a woman that didn't like her back scratched? You know the old saying, right? If you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. It should be like this. I'll scratch your back. You know what will happen? If you do it a few nights before you go to sleep, you'll start getting back scratches. Why? Because they're responsive. I'm telling you guys, women are responders. That's the way God made them. They could be running a large company, but they're responders. That's just how God wired them. I remember Linda saying to me one day, "Can you do me a favor?" You know that she would do that at the most inconvenient time for me. Because I was like engaged something. But I decided one day, I remember I made this decision. If she says, "Can you do me a favor?" I would say, absolutely. It would be my pleasure. So, she was like, so make it a point when she needs help, you're there. And then tied to that, anticipate her needs. Anticipate her needs. I realized, some years ago that she was constantly anticipating my needs. Like, it astounded me. One day we were on an airplane, and I never do this, but the drink cart came through, and they said, "What would you like?" Normally Diet Coke, club soda, something. I said, "I think I'll have a tomato juice." So I drank the tomato juice. I remember she kind of looked at me like, "You never ordered tomato juice." And the next day, I go to the refrigerator, I open the door, and there's a 64-ounce jar of tomato juice in our refrigerator. Because in her mind, she said, John must like tomato juice all of a sudden. You know what she was doing? She was anticipating my needs. And by the way, I didn't really like tomato juice that much. But I had to drink it now, right? So what can you do before she asks? And the wonderful thing is, all these little things add up. It's called a compound effect. It's like, would you rather have $1 million, or would you rather have starting the first day with a penny, and we'll double the amount every day for a month? Which do you think you end up with? You end up with 10 times more at the end of the month. It's the compound effect. Know her love language. If you haven't read the 5 love languages, read it and know what her love language is. Because you tend to give her your love language. So know what fills her tank and keep her tank filled. Now, when you do all this little stuff, let me just give you, here's what she's thinking. Here's how she's receiving it. When you do all these little things, and you can come up with your own, here's how she interprets the little stuff. I'm numero uno. And she wants to be numero uno. She doesn't want any competition. She's also thinking, he cares about how my day is going, and he's trying to make it easier. He's grateful. And then I can lean on him. In addition to these, to stay sticky, put together an inner circle of friends that you can be transparent with about your marriage and about your life as a husband. I love this quote that Jim Rohn said. He said, "You are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with." So what does that mean? That means make sure that you're hanging out with guys who have a healthy respect and consistency when it comes to women, wives, and marriage. Let's move on. This will be our last point. All right, we've gone over this. So the first one is be sticky. So we'll go through the others next week. All right, but let me get through this one. You must be inquisitive with her. You must be inquisitive with her. You should regularly start. And I got this from Gary Chapman years ago. You should ask her, what can I do to make your life better? What can I do to make your life better? Here's another one. What's one thing I could change to make our marriage better? Again, because they're responsive, when you do this, after a while, say, I'm going to work on this for the next 30 days. What would you like me to work on? If you do that for a couple months, 3 or 4 months, she's going to say, what can I do to make our marriage better? What can I do that would help you out? Here's a big one. Know what fine means. If you ask your wife a question, like, are you okay? And she goes, no, I'm fine. So here's what fine means. I'm really pissed off, and you're going to have to figure it out. So know what fine means. Because what's happening is, when they're starting to do that, women pull away from a man initially emotionally. And the problem with guys is they don't even know it. They don't even know it's happening. It doesn't happen all at once. Divorces never happen all at once. It happens over time. But the first phase is being pulled away emotionally. You're not a mind reader, right? Did you ever say to your wife, what do you expect me to do? Read your mind? No, you're not a mind reader, and she doesn't want you to be a mind reader. Here's what she wants you to be. She wants you to be a detective. So you got to learn to dig deeper. Don't expect her to tell you. She may not know. Part of your deal in asking her questions is helping her figure it out. Here's some things that you need to dig into her. What are her longings? What do you long for? What are your loves? What are your fears? What are your deepest hurts? Linda and I have been married for 48 years. We're still sorting out stuff that happened to her the first 16 years of her life. What angers her? And by the way, when your wife gets angry, how does she act? If she's loud and, slams doors, that one's easy to figure out. What happens if she's silent? What happens if she says, I'm fine? What excites her? What does she dream about? And what embarrasses her? I believe everybody has a commandment that they live by. My wife's commandment that she lives by is, thou shalt not embarrass me. So I'm very careful in public, because I used to do it a lot, of embarrassing her. Listen to a famous theologian, Lady Gaga, famous theologian Bob Marley. The biggest coward is the man who awakens a woman's love with no intention of loving her. I said we're going to be in 2 parts, so here's the last thing I'm going to tell you this morning. When you got married to your wife, if you were a typical male, you wanted to explore the contours of her body. What she wanted was for you to explore the contours of her soul. And then, last thing I'll say. Do you know what a bid is? I've learned this over the years. Do you know what a bid is? Sometimes my wife will go to the window. She loves hawks. But she'll go to the window, and we have this fence around the back, and sometimes a hawk will land there, and she'll say, "Do you see that?" And when I was dumb, I would say, "No, see what?" Keep working on what I was doing. And it could be that, or she would say, "Let me read this to you." Or, that's a bid. And here's what a bid is. She's inviting you into her world. So you got to pay attention. You have to know when she's making a bid for your time. Okay? So next week, we'll talk about the last 4. A lot of information. I will bring you everything all the bullet points that I've given you today, so you have them in case you missed any of them. But this is the real test of an amazing man. This is why I say marriage is the test of an amazing man.
Let John know you appreciate him, would you please? So guys, I say it every week, but I mean it. You guys are champions for showing up. It's when we get up, it's quite dark out. You got to get out there and you say, "Oh boy, this one day this week, my car had frost on it." It's like, wow, it's coming. So we had a little meeting beforehand, and Paul shared with us some news about our Facebook page and views on other social media sites. And more than one guy has come up to me and said, "You know what? This place should be packed with guys." And I'll tell you that because Paul told us this morning that our views and our likes and our shares are in fact being representative of that. Guys are watching. So if you appreciate what Mark and John have done here, what I would tell you is if you're a social guy, even if you're not, ask your kids, if you can like and share and view, you go to Christ Community Church Plainfield, and you could do that in their Facebook page, and that helps. We talked about that cascading effect. That's what social media really is. So we'd appreciate if you would do that. You could also follow Amazing Men's Ministry, and you'll see some wisdom from John weekly up there. So that'll be a good thing to do. All right, so let me just talk about some guys out there that their wife might have died. They're not married. They're suddenly single. Guys that don't have a wife right now, how can you use this? Because a great amount of this teaching was if you had a wife. I've been married 32 years, and I feel like a dummy with a lot of this. So I work on it, but I still feel like a dummy. I miss a lot of this, But if you don't have a wife, here's what I would tell you. There's information here that you can use. Being magnetic is a good thing in every way of life. When I get wisdom from other people and I look back at my life, what I typically say to others is this: I didn't do this as a young man, but I regret it. This is what I know now. So if you don't have a wife, you can use this information, whether it's a son, a grandson, someone that you're mentoring, you can use this information. So don't be dismayed. Don't say, I'm not coming next week because it didn't apply to me. It does. And then your prayer this week should say, Father, how can I use this information to help me? You know, I've been around long enough to know that people that lose their wives sometimes say, I'll never get married again, and we've talked about it, and, you know, we can't think like God. We don't know what's next. So I encourage you, if you don't have a wife, if you're single now, to not dismiss this information. So, again, remember, like us, share us, that's really important. When we talk about magnetism, just don't understand, it's not like being the life of the party. It's being the life of her party. How does a magnet work? You know, the thing about a magnet is that it doesn't work if it's too far away. So you have to get close. And then you get close, and then the attraction snaps. And that piece of metal bar goes right to the magnet. So the first step, I believe, is learning how to get close so you could show your magnetism. Like I said, I've been married 32 years, and this is for guys in the room that might think like I think. Do magnets lose their magnetism? Anybody know that answer? They do. And you know the number one reason why magnets lose their magnetism? No, age. Rust is one, but age. If magnets are not used to do what they're supposed to do, they get old, and the passage of time does weaken the strength of a magnet. Wow, talking to me there. You know, when John talks about when your wife glances over you, your eyes light up. My wife would go, what's he doing? Why is he doing that? What does he want? You know, so exactly. So this has to be relearned. I'm talking about myself now. You know, with 3 kids and a house and next things going on, like all of us, life's busy. But I am encouraged when I reread this is that I have to go back to being a magnet. You know, and it's really easy for me because I do it with everybody else. But I neglect her for a lot of these things, you know. So this is not easy. You know, what John's presenting here, I want you to know, this is like the ultimate man. And, you know, this whole series, so keep in mind, this is like the best of the best. We're not all going to fall into that category. Some of us are going to be mid-range, some of us in different things, different ways. Some of us are going to be in the bottom of these things. You know, there might be, you know, the knight in shining armor sitting out here right now. And there might not be. So wherever you're at, and whatever lesson we're at, understand that the epitome of man is what we're showing here. And we're not all that. So don't be discouraged. Let's see, is there anything else here? Oh, the other thing, there's a couple of reasons, but I just wanted to talk too. Why do magnets lose their charge? External changes. You know, Google's an amazing thing, right? You can learn everything. External changes. Magnets that are not protected from outside fields fall prey to the loss of their magnetism. That's what John was talking about, the gentlemen that you keep. If you keep gentlemen that are outside of the field, you can guarantee that, like John said, you're going to be the average of the 5 guys. Yeah, but I've known this guy for 35 years. We go golfing. We just, he's certainly not a spiritual guy, but we really have a great time. I get it. But that's a conversation you and God have to have. You know, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to like rattle the cage and say, listen to this, because it's going to improve your life. Again, I'm preaching to myself here. Listen to this. You know, the number one reason, John said, divorce happens over a period of time. Do I take my wife for granted? When I was studying this again over the weekend, over the week, I said, do I take my wife for granted? What can I do to start this again? Where am I failing? Where am I succeeding? So, gentlemen, this is the most important time. This is when you guys get together and talk about some things. Again, you know, it doesn't have to be so deep, but you should be able to start feeding off each other, feeding off someone's experience. Again, if you don't have your wife, someone that you're mentoring, child, grandchild, kid down the street that's confused and needs some direction. And if you're a single guy looking for a wife, wow, you apply this stuff, and you don't have to sit up here 32 years in marriage later saying, I should have. Have a great week ahead. I think you guys are all champions. Yes? Sure. Very good. Get your Hallmark cards. Chance to be a gentleman.